要直线爬升1500米的这样一个海拔高度，对车手们在这个比赛当中的这个抗乳酸能力呢提出一个非常大的考验。我觉得在本站比赛当中呢，这个黄山的这个拥有者呢也是要谨慎，我觉得还是有一定。
其实这个塔罗提他应该是一个非常爬坡能力非常强的一个选手啊，今年也是之前刚刚随队参加过环意大的比赛，经验非常丰富。
是，
这个赛段其实难度也是很高的，我们一起来进入到比赛的直播当中吧。
Well, welcome back into the 2024 tour of Jinghai Lake, the highest altitude stage race in the world. And it is another brutal day here on stage 4 as we look back and reflect on the highlights of stage 3. And what a remarkable stage it was, just under 150 riders on the start line. And it included some of the most brutal climbs in all of cycling, the Gingsha Mountain, which reached a height of 10,700 feet. 3,264 meters. Eric Fagundes was the man who was in yellow, and it was his Burgos team who had the responsibility of trying to defend it. But as they start to reach the bottom of the big climbs, it was last year's champion, henok mulbrhan, who decided to attack. Eric Fagundes could only sit back and watch. As the altitude began to increase, the yellow jersey was starting to lose touch with the race leaders. Astana, the team of henok mulbrhan, really didn't fire a shot on day 2, but they were at the forefront of stage 3, along with one of the new teams in this year's tour, Baja Rural. The stage would end up finishing in the city of Gita, and it would come down to 5 athletes. Baja Rural, well, you thought numbers, they would win the stage, but it would be the Italian, Manuele Tarosi. And in winning the stage, he would also secure the yellow jersey as well as the green sprint haste jersey. henok mulbrhan would sit back, though, just 12 seconds back after that stage. Jefferson Cepeda was superb, finishing 3rd in the time of 4:59.15. So the stage is set here in the town of Gita. The destination is Gonghu, a total distance of 136.1 kilometres. But today, they go even higher than yesterday. Today, the riders will reach a height of 12,300 feet. The Yellow River, well, that's what this region is famous for, and the riders will get a small opportunity early on in the stage to enjoy it. Always plenty of ceremony, pomp and pageantry. Chinese incredibly proud of their history and tradition from region to region. Team Burgos, well, they'll be disappointed losing the yellow jersey yesterday, but today is another day. They would have sat down, they would have gone through their tactics. They will be desperate to try and regain the yellow jersey. Luke Mudgeway will wear the green today, even though the green jersey is owned by this man, henok mulbrhan. So mulbrhan, the king of the mountains. Saeed Savradeh will wear the blue jersey. Team from Colombia, Median, well, you'd expect them to be comfortable with their head above the clouds, but you're almost with your head into the stratosphere on this tour, such as the lack of oxygen and deprivation at the heights the riders will reach today. Saeed Sabardez out of Iran. What a remarkable talent he is, wearing the blue jersey for the leader of the leading Asian rider. And Tarosi, or Manueli Tarosi, took everybody by surprise yesterday, was absolutely superb, won the stage, and in doing so, picked up that yellow jersey. Luke Mudgway, the young New Zealander, riding for Li Ning start. He has been superb, taking his opportunity early on to pick up valuable points. Here is the man who will be happy in the polka dot jersey, but more importantly, will want to be wearing yellow. He won last year's tour by just 1 second over Eric Fagundes of the Burgos team. Responsibility now falls on the shoulders of Burgos. Can they regain it? Do they have anything left in the legs to try and challenge the likes of Astana, a World Tour team, and the likes of Alpecin de Koning? So as usual, just a little bit of a parade to start the tour. This was earlier this morning, to start the stage, a little bit earlier this morning. Luke Mudgway there in the green jersey. Last year riding for Black Spoke Racing, a New Zealand trade team that unfortunately folded in 2024, and a number of those riders spread across a number of these other continental teams, these Pro Tour teams. Just over 140 riders remaining in this year's tour, representation from 31 different countries. Technical officials from Canada, South Africa, China, New Zealand. And they'll take the right-hand turn here across this wonderful part of this region, and shortly the Yellow River will come into sight for all of the riders. And so just confirming GC for you, Manueli Tarosi in yellow, henok mulbrhan 12 seconds back, and then it is Jefferson Cepeda out of Kaha Rural, 20 seconds back on the yellow, and a group of very, very talented riders sitting, waiting, including Jochen Magudi, also of Kaha Rural, number 46. He sits back, just 24 seconds back out of the yellow jersey. Santiago Umba of Astana, then 48 seconds back. So it's still anybody's tour. It's certainly not done and dusted just yet. Today is a massive stage. Most of the time they will be above 12,000 feet. And then you've still got stages 5, 6, 7, and 8 to come. And this is a look at today's stage. Incredibly tough. We've got the Washon Buktai climb, which comes at 3,760 meters. They reach the summit at 50 kilometers into the stage. The stage distance today, 136.1 kilometers. Slight downhill run into the finish. The question is, can the bunch stay together? How many groups will form? How brutal is the altitude? What effect will it have on the majority of the riders in the peloton? Earlier today, henok mulbrhan picked up 5 points. More importantly, picked up a valuable 3 seconds. So what was a 12-second gap back to yellow for him is now 9 seconds. There is another opportunity for further sprint ace points on the stage, and then of course the bonus points that they can pick up by winning the stage. And henok mulbrhan, well, without doubt, is probably the best all-round rider in this race, and not just a great climber, but also a great sprinter. And here is Mario Aparicio, who in the second stage of the tour on the famous Bijan Yaku mountain, reaching a height of 3,374 meters. And it was a 10.8 kilometer climb at 7%. I'm not sure Burgos were overly happy with the way that he approached that particular stage, but it worked out well because Eric Fagundes ultimately ended up winning the stage. Now, here are the boys from Kaha Rural Remarkable performance from them yesterday. 3 riders in the break. Number 44 is Yomi Gardeno. In fact, Guillermo Silva, my apologies. Number 112, just sitting there on the back too, and he's been very, very good all day. Part of the early break, and that is Adney van Angelen, Dutch rider. So the bunch has been splintered on the first big climb of the day, which was the Washon back tie climb of 3,760 meters. Now small groups trying to form larger groups, trying to chase down the race leaders, trying to make this a sprint finish if they can. Looks like the Astana boys on the front driving the train. Responsibility, though, ultimately falls today on the shoulder of the VF Group Bardiani team, because they do hold the yellow jersey with Manuele Tarosi. Also features the brilliant Eric Zanoncello, who was third in this tour last year. And this was earlier today, picking up the King of the Mountain points. Unbelievable to think that 12,300 feet above sea level, altitude has an effect on the body at 2,000 feet. That's when the body starts to look to replenish its blood cell, looks to try and re-energize its what they call hematocrit. So if you're going to get an altitude benefit by training at 2,000 feet, you can imagine just how tough it is on the lungs at 12,300 feet. A lot of athletes these days will spend a lot of time at altitude training, trying to increase their red blood cells, trying to increase their ability to carry oxygen more quickly and more effectively around the body. A lot of science in it these days that you live high, train low, and that if you are going to train at altitude, you don't train at too high an intensity. And certainly altitude training, not for everybody. Physiologically, it's not one rule for all. Some people will benefit, others, well, it can be detrimental to them. So more and more science in the altitude side of things. But these days, with the busy race schedules these riders have, very difficult for them to truly prepare for a tour like the tour of Jinghai Lake, because they just simply don't have the time in their schedule to find 3 weeks at altitude to make the adjustment. So good performance here coming from Mario Aparicio from Burgos. Just having to make sure that he does keep eating, does keep drinking. You can just see the gear that he's pushing there. So he's on a relatively flat stretch, still at 12,000 feet above sea level though. He's got a couple of gears to go to if he needs it. He's got a nice smooth pedal cadence. Not the highest spinner of the pedals we've seen. Probably sort of pushing more around about 80 revolutions per minute at the moment. Might just be a little bit of a what we call a false flat. I'll just have a slight incline. Now just on his team radio, trying to get some updates, trying to find out where the chase group are, what his instructions are from his team. And there is Van Gallen, Silva Kuzan, and Hernandez Cepeda. So Silva having another very, very good ride, part of this incredibly strong Kaha rural team. So Adney van Angelen riding for the Thailand team. Rujay Hotels. And very animated looking Lorenzo Cortucci for Team Corotec. I just have a problem with his pedal. Saw riders yesterday just struggling with a little bit of cramp. He certainly just doesn't look comfortable at the moment. Looks just a little irritated. Just got to control the emotions. Nice downhill stretch at the top of this massive climb. And that's what the riders are ultimately thinking. They're saying to themselves, just got to get to the top, just got to get to the top. I've got downhill, everything that goes up must come down. And now we will have a group of 4 at the front end of this stage, at the front end of this bike race. Because Mario Aparicio has been caught. So Van Gallen, Silva, Cepeda, and Aparicio are our 4. It's a good group to have in a break. Work effectively. Don't want to have too many riders in the break sometimes. It can just be a little bit disruptive. And here is the remainder of the peloton. So it certainly has been blown apart up on that climb. A lot of the sprinters will just be sitting back in what they affectionately bunch. So just a minute 35. The sprinters will be appreciating this if there are any sort of sprinters sitting back in this group, and we'll try and pick up those names and numbers for you. I can't imagine the pure sprinters are here, but those all-round riders, the likes of David Baldacchini, possibly, a man who ended up finishing 3rd, in fact, on GC last year, Timothy DuPont, out of Tartaleto Azurax. But it is Astana, the team of Henok mulbrhan, who are on the work doing the front, and you can see Henok just sitting back there in the King of the Mountains jersey. And also just protecting their riders up in the break. The riders from Kaha Rural just holding second wheel. They won't come through and do any real work. In fact, if they find themselves on the front, they'll probably soft pedal a little bit. And the yellow jersey leader, Emanuele Torosi, the Italian. What a performance from him yesterday. Himself in that break of 6 riders coming into the last 2 kilometres. 3 riders from Baja Rural. 2 riders from Astana and himself. Generally, when it's 5 on 1, you're not going to put your money on the individual to win the stage, but he found a way. And really, I think Baja Rural would have been spending last night questioning how, in fact, they didn't win that stage when they had critical mass in the break and had the opportunity with the 1-2-3 punch and just didn't quite utilise it. So Guillermo Silva looking pretty comfortable on the front, just sitting there. Jefferson Cepeda, he was brilliant yesterday. He was part of that group of 6 riders who had an opportunity to win the stage. Mario Aparicio looks like he's pushing a 53, 54, 14 perhaps in terms of his gear ratio. The smallest cog on the back for non-cycling aficionados will probably have 11 teeth on it. Their chain rings, their big chain rings on the front can be sort of anywhere from 53, 54, 55. I'd imagine most of them are probably running what they would call a 5311, maybe a 5411. And they'll have a smaller chain ring on the inside up front, and that could be 39, could be smaller, could be a 42. Every cyclist will know what gear ratios they prefer based on their own individual physiology and strength. They'll also factor in the stage itself, and you can imagine here that they'll make sure they've got some very, very easy gears to go to. There he is, Luke Mudgway in the green jersey. We talk about a type of rider that has the ability to win the stage. If he is in fact in that chase group, he is that type of rider, not a pure sprinter, but strong enough to contend for the stage. Ronil Campos from Li Ning Start, part of the early break. Man from Venezuela, 30 years of age, just sitting there in the red and white sleeves. And Astana here, I think what they're trying to do is look to try and shut this group down. There is still more sprint points on offer on the stage. And that would potentially allow henok mulbrhan to pick up possibly another 3-second bonus and reduce the time difference between himself and our race leader from 12 seconds to 6 seconds, and then potentially also contest the stage win without actually having to win the stage or without actually having to burn too many matches on the big climbs. Set up a wonderful stage 5 tomorrow, and stage 6, 7 and 8. And thus it is the Astana team on the front doing the work. And that is the unique and remarkable ability that henok mulbrhan does have, not just in the Sprint Ace jersey, King of the Mountains jersey, but also overall GC. Now, Manuele Tarosi is technically also holder of that green jersey for winning the stage yesterday. That does sit on the shoulders of Luke Mudgway. Clearly, one rider cannot wear both jerseys. So he's still the holder of the green jersey and the yellow jersey. But it's on the shoulders of the young New Zealander Mudgway, who just sits in the back there in this lead group. He's another one who'll be looking to try and contest for those Sprint Ace points. This is the third group on the road. There'll be some sore riders in there. Gianni Marchand, number 143 in that group from Tartalito Azurax. And there is Luke Mudgway, last year riding for Black Spoke Racing, the New Zealand trade team. Wonderful audition for him to possibly look to pick up a contract with maybe larger pro teams, World Tour teams. Just sort of see the Maurizio there for Burgos in the purple, just getting out of his seat, just trying to use a slightly different muscle group, just trying to use every opportunity he can to not burn too many matches, try and reduce the onset of fatigue as this stage continues. It's not a long stage, just 136.1 kilometres. But when you're at 12,000 feet above sea level, it is brutal. Yeah, nicely balanced. All riders looking pretty good at the moment. Never look at facial expressions of riders. Tend to look at the form. If you start to see the head moving a little bit or shoulders starting to drop or riders just starting to work through their gears a little bit, it's generally a sign of fatigue. And that is a pretty impressive lineup. Pronsky rode very well yesterday. Remarkable ride from him. Tough, tenacious, gritty. Probably the real star yesterday for the Astana team was Santiago Umba. So much work on the climb, got dropped, managed to get back on the descent and was prominent in yesterday's stage. The question is, can they recover? I'd argue that at sea level, absolutely from day to day. But when you've got your head above the clouds at this height, well, all of them have probably never had to experience this before, as we just see henok mulbrhan pulling to one side in the polka dot jersey, maybe just looking for his team vehicle. Interesting, Manuele Tarossi. He seems to just have that face that almost looks like he's constantly in discomfort. We've pretty quickly come to learn that's just him. That's just the mask that he does wear. Others will have that poker face, will give nothing, show nothing. And, well, others, when they're in the world of hurt or in the hurt box, they will accentuate that hurt, and you'll well and truly see it. What is affectionately known as the pain face, or the ugly face, if I can use that word. So Guillermo Silva, number 44, just on the front, taking his turn. Sitting on his wheel, Jefferson Cepeda. $112, looking comfortable. What a performance from him today. Is that Nate Van Engelen? Just be talking to each other, just a little bit of encouragement. Just got to be, they're going to start to change direction slightly, then the crosswinds can just pick up. You can just see the flags there in the background blowing. Very close to Mongolia up here. A lot of nomadic tribes that you will see along the road. A lot of yak and goat, sheep farming. Now you can just see clearly got a bit of a tailwind behind them here. And that can sometimes be the danger, because you've got a tailwind directly behind you, then suddenly the road moves around to the right or the left, and that tailwind becomes a crosswind. And that is a cyclist's worst nightmare. Then you'll see them get into that echelon type formation. Slight descent here. So I'd imagine traveling anywhere between 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. So one of the Median riders just deciding to discard the jacket. And you can just see the pain here, the frustration from the Malaysia push bikers. Number 87, and a bit of difficulty is Patrick Reibig, the German. Looking to just hold that wheel. Looking to just try and hang here on the back. As mentioned, all of these riders will go through some highs and lows. It's about just learning how to work through the lows, enjoy the highs. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and it'd be called Disneyland. So just under 2 minutes, that gap between our leaders and the Peloton. Now, Team Bardiani coming to the front. They hold the yellow jersey. VF Group Bardiani, all Italian team. Again, nice work here. Deep carbon rim wheels. Technology on the bike has changed a lot really in the last 10 years, a real revolution in terms of width of tyres and air pressure in them. It used to be sort of narrow tyres with sort of 120, 130, 140 PSI in them. Anywhere from 19 to maximum width would have been 23 mils these days. Well, 23 mils is considered to be very thin, and often see riders riding 27, 28 mil tyres. And now you can see the Peloton, possibly the third group on the road, trying to chase the second group on the road. We'll gain a bit more of an understanding shortly. So this is group 3. And this man here will be desperate for group 3 to join too. You just have a look at the speed there, just sitting just on 50 kilometres an hour on that slight incline. So a little bit of a headwind by the looks of it potentially, or they are still just travelling slightly uphill. These riders certainly have the ability on the flat to go anywhere from 55 to 60 k an hour. Still 50 kilometres is remarkable. This is strange, you don't often see the yellow jersey leader on the front of the Peloton. So interesting strategy being played out here by the VF Group Bardiani team. Now just starting to look at each other. Well, this is certainly going to benefit our race group of 4 that are out in front. You would expect at some point someone to take some initiative. I'll just look at the 4 riders up front, just have a look exactly what those time splits are. We do go back through GC. At the moment on the road, Jefferson Cepeda is wearing the yellow jersey. He came into today's stage sitting in 3rd place, just 20 seconds behind Emanuele Tarossi, and just 8 seconds behind henok mulbrhan. So there is incentive for both Tarossi from VF Group Bardiani and henok mulbrhan's Astana team to at some point want to take up the chase. That is, if they believe that handing the yellow jersey over Jefferson Cepeda for some reason is not that detrimental to them, knowing what is coming in stages 5, 6, 7 and 8. You look at the depth of the Kaha Rural team, you look at how well they climbed yesterday. There was certainly one team who know how to protect the yellow jersey. They are stacked full of climbers. They are tough. They are gritty. We've got 2 of them in the break at the moment, with Guillermo Silva and Jefferson Cepeda, as we said, will be in the yellow jersey if the race was to stop now. So he is the new leader on the road. Slight stagger formation, so a little bit of a crosswind clearly. You got the wind will be coming across their right shoulders. So as you're looking at it from left to right, and therefore you'll tend to get that stagger formation. The rider on the front's doing it tough. My apologies, that wind in fact will be coming from right to left across the left shoulder of the riders. Just looking at a slightly different camera angle here in studio. So that wind will be coming across their left shoulder. And that's why the rider at the front is closest to the wind. And then it is staggered. Really what you're trying to do is get your front wheel just up behind the rider in front of you, just to one side. And therefore trying to block the wind. That is the danger up here at 12,000 feet on this particular stretch of road. It does tend to wind its way through this plateau, and you can have tailwinds You can have crosswinds coming from the left. You can have crosswinds coming from the right. And of course, at times, you can also end up having some headwinds. Looking pretty comfortably, our race leader, Manuele Tarosi, at 26 years of age. Did ride the Giro d'Italia. Did finish 11th in a stage. Finished 102nd overall on general classification in the Giro. Certainly would have had a role within the team. So we just have a look at the flaxseed in the background, those wonderful yellow flowers that tend to dominate this region. These four riding beautifully at the moment, Adney, Van, Adney van Egelden, just sitting back there nicely. The man from the Netherlands. You generally don't associate the Dutch as being historically great climbers, being such a flat country, but boy, he's had a wonderful, wonderful day today, has the Dutchman. So the Stana boys, God, they were so good yesterday. They were disappointing on stage 2, but they really rose to the occasion yesterday. Were fantastic in allowing henok mulbrhan to just put serious distance behind him, between himself and his great rival from the Burgos team in Eric Fagundes last year. It was a second that separated them at the end of stage 8, and it was mulbrhan who ended up winning the yellow jersey, winning the 2023 tour of Lake Jinghai. Saeed Savradeh, he was very, very good on stage 2 and deservedly wears that blue jersey. Man from Iran. So very much a truly global sport. The sport of cycling, as mentioned, 31 countries in this year's tour of Jinghai Lake. Just start to see that crosswind. So as I said, it'll be coming from right to left as you're looking at it. So that rider sitting second wheel just wants to try and get his front wheel just up behind the rider in front of him, but on the opposite side of the wind. So allow the rider on the front to be taking the wind. Lovely little stagger formation. Not significant, but enough for those riders on the front to certainly notice it. henok mulbrhan now starts to come to the front in the King of the Mountains jersey, supported by his Astana teammate sitting there second wheel. A few more riders just maybe struggling a little bit with the altitude, to be fair. Here you go. You can just see a little bit of flutter there on the numbers of the riders. Median rider, number 152, and Leandro Euler. And look at that third group, desperately trying to bridge the gap across to that second group. Mudgeway, the man on the front driving the train, Going to need a little bit of buy on here. More Burgos riders. So the Burgos boys looking pretty comfortable. They're in that third group. Sunbay out. Eric Fagundes not in that group. Clement Alino, the Frenchman, wearing number 33. It is tough though. Those crosswinds up and no one really wants to spend too much time on the front. Absolutely zapping. Should mention though that Everett De Keyser, there, number 142, he is for Tartaleto Azorak sitting here on the back. He is an absolutely got a head like granite. He's as tough as they come. What a warrior, what a street fighter that man is. And if he's in your group, you've got somebody you can rely on. These four riding really nicely at the moment. So clearly those crosswinds up, coming from right to left. In that staggered formation. Just want the rider in front of you to just block the wind by just getting your front wheel just to one side of the rider in front of you's back wheel. And look at that, still managing to do 40.6 kilometers an hour in tough conditions. On the radio, asking for time splits. Number 42, Jefferson Cepeda, is our race leader on the road, and you can just have a look in the distance there. That is a wonderful shot. Tell you what, crosswinds across there, long stretch of road, scenery tends to look the same, and it is very, very tough mentally. There is just nothing easy about this tour of Jinghai Lake. Every stage offers something. And even on the so-called easy stages, you've still got to deal with the altitude. Yellow jerseys just obviously dropped back. Might have had a little bit of a mechanical. And now just got a couple of his teammates to ride it back on. So not quite sure what happened to the Italian there. Might have been the compulsory bathroom stop. Might be having possibly problems with his communication. Lorenzo Cortucci, number 56 for Team Corotec. Haven't seen Team Corotec yet really fire a shot. They're riding ultimately for David Baldacchini, who was third in the tour last year. Their other big man in the group, and Okamika for Burgos. So there they are, 1 and 2, 66 and number 1, separated by the rider from the Tianude Hotel cycling team, Jonathan Monsalve. What a bike rider, what a performance he had yesterday in the mountains. A rider who is clearly comfortable with his head above the clouds. Another fascinating stage. And you still just feel that there's a few more chapters still to be written. Still 54.9 kilometers to go. It is a bit of a So Jefferson Cepeda picks up the maximum sprint ace points. Sitting there on the front, Mario Aparicio. Cepeda is the new race leader on the road. This man here attacked on stage 2, did Mario Aparicio, and sent a message to everybody, look, I can climb. I'm not afraid to be aggressive. Burgos will be happy that they've got a rider in the break. But some real disorganisation in that main peloton. Yellow jersey leader there. We saw him off the back of the bunch there for a while, just dropping back to one of the team vehicles. Not quite sure what went on, whether he was in fact having a problem with audio or just simply wanted some further team instructions. It looks very pedestrian, and that will be good for the third group, who are desperately trying to get their way into the second group. A little bit more critical mass to the peloton and the benefit of having more numbers in the peloton. In fact, there they are. They have joined, so the third group has joined. I can tell you that because Luke Mudgway, the New Zealander in the green jersey, was in that third group, and he has now decided to take up maybe whatever remaining sprint ace points are available. And interesting that we do see our race leader, Manuele Tarosi, briefly deciding to maybe chase him. Now we see a number of other riders looking to try and attack and maybe form another group. These riders not seriously in GC contention. Looking to possibly bridge the gap. See if they can form a breakaway. They've sensed that the peloton has been very disorganised, has been somewhat disjointed. There hasn't seemed to be a lot of urgency. So why not form another group? Why not go from being in the third group to suddenly into the second group? And now the peloton will then become the third group on the road. So just again going through that GC, it is Manuele Tarosi, who is in yellow. henok mulbrhan wearing the King of the Mountains jersey, 12 seconds back. Jefferson Cepeda, who is in the lead group at the moment, was 20 seconds back starting today. Now, he technically then has a 3-minute 10 lead in the tour. If the race was to stop now, that's the advantage he'd have. He'd be our new race leader in the yellow jersey. So, not surprising to see there Jonathan Monsalve for the Tian Uday Hotel cycling team. And that is the reason for, I think, Mudgway deciding to go up, just trying to pick up whatever points remain, if in fact there are any. henok mulbrhan, brilliant yesterday. They rode incredibly well as the Astana team. He was frustrated on day 2. He was isolated. The Burgos boys just beat him up. And then we were sitting back here looking at the Astana team, wondering if in fact they had climbers. And then they came to the fore yesterday and said, absolutely we do. And they were brilliant. And there is our race leader, Jefferson Cepeda. Guillermo Silva, number 44, his fellow teammate. Mario Aparicio was the Burgos rider in that break. And then Adne van Engelen, the Dutch rider. just see that left to right crosswind coming across their left shoulder. That echelon. And we talk about how these roads can weave, and so suddenly that crosswind is now with that left-hand current going to be somewhat of a headwind. So it changes direction very quickly. And now just trying to get into that aero position. Above 12,000 feet above sea level. Still one moderately tough climb to come, which will still take them to, and then a couple of little undulations, and then a nice little run into the finish line, into the town of Gonghu. Well, Kaha Rural, they had 3 riders in the break yesterday. They really should have won the stage. Couldn't do it, couldn't get the job done. But they have been very much the aggressive team in this year's tour. A little invisible through stages 1 and 2. Came to the 4 yesterday, clearly at the 4 today. This man here, Adne van Engelen, Dutch rider. Another one who not really going to contend the leader's yellow jersey, came in to the stage significantly behind. In fact, was 13 minutes and 21 seconds behind on GC coming into the stage, the Dutchman. Riding for this team out of Thailand, Rujai Insurance. It's very much a team of United Nations with riders out of Greece, Australia, Thailand, Germany, the Netherlands, Mongolia. So 2 more other riders looking to try and come across and join these 2 and form a group of 4, which is certainly going to be a lot more effective than a group of 2. Peloton, though, look like they've got just a little bit more urgency behind. A couple of riders on the front looking to drive and looking to maybe see if they can just start to increase that tempo, start to look to get this peloton to try and cut in to the race leaders, the group of 4. So Jonathan Monsalvat is the rider for Tian Uday Hotel cycling team. And then Park Hotel Valkenburg. Sinchik, now Nil Sinchik, he won stage 2 last year. Stage 2 last year was in fact yesterday's stage, which was stage 3 this year. So quite common for stages to be moved around or particular routes being changed from year to year. And he was superb last year riding for the Ablock team. There are the Median boys out of Colombia. Looking pretty comfortable. So we've got Walter Vargas, Victor Ocampo. There's always that danger when you try and get into a bit of a break. You basically just get hung out to dry. You're just sort of stuck in no man's land at some point. They'll have to make a decision. Do they look to continue to try and take time out of the peloton? Or do you wave the white flag and sit up, grab a drink, grab something to eat, wait for the peloton to swallow you up, and then possibly look at having a bit of a plan B? I like this here again from this Kaha Rural team. Another rider into that break, I'd imagine. It'd be interesting to see what his tactics are. Does he actually act as a worker in this group of 4? Or is he just acting simply as a policeman, knowing that he's got a couple of his riders in that lead break? Just decide to sit on the back and just monitor things. mentioned, he's got Jefferson Cepeda in that break, along with Guillermo Silva. And here are our race leaders. So Van and Gallant, great performance from him. That is really, really gutsy from the Dutchman. Spanish rider, Mario Aprizio, sitting there in the purple colours of Burgos. He's had some good success, has Van and Gallant. He won the Tour of Thailand earlier this year. He's last year won the Tour of Sharjah. On stage in the Tour of Thailand back in 2021. Finished second on GC in the Tour of Egypt back in 2016. So he's 31 years of age, brings plenty of experience. So, that's the leader's yellow jersey by the looks of it on the front, is it? Trying to understand the tactics here of our race leader. I mean, it really is the responsibility of his teammates. The question is, how many teammates does he actually have in the group, VF Group Bardiani? Because he knows that at the moment, the yellow jersey that he wears, if things stay this way, he'll be handing that over to Jefferson Cepeda. That is the big question. How many riders does VF Group Bardiani have in that peloton? So Nilsson Schick, big tall man, big strong athlete, rode brilliantly to win stage 2 last year. Not taking a lot of time out of the peloton. Peloton holding its gap, holding its distance at the moment. And we've got a member from Team Corotech. Of course, their team leader is David Baldacchini. Their sprinter, Attilo Viviani. Nelpison de Koenig sitting there, one of the 2 World Tour teams. Sen Leison. They won stage 1. Jensen Plowright, the Australian, picking up the victory in the city of Zinning. What a really, really special moment for him. So, David Caburo, a member of VF Bardiani, sitting back there at number 65. Clearly happy for other teams to do the work at the moment. Still 43.2 kilometres to go, and there is still one really, really tough climb to come. And they do reach the top of the final major climb of the day. They literally have around about 30 kilometres of the race remaining. And so that climb is not too far away for our group of 4. And then it's about just chucking it into the big gears, not looking back, believing and hoping that they're not the first group to run out of talent. So good to see the holder of the Asian blue jersey there, Saeed Sabradez, on the front, doing a little bit of work. Another one of the Corotech riders decides to go up the road. And you can see one long line now, so the pace is certainly on, what we affectionately call the pain train, folks. And then suddenly things just break up again. Another attack down the left-hand side coming from the boys from Median. So they'll be looking to try and see if they can jump across and join the group of 3 riders. So just in front of the peloton at the moment. And possibly by the looks of it, we might just see an Astana rider also going across here. And now everybody decides to chase. Everybody wants a piece of the action. So team orders have started to come through. Median team, including Godona, Vilmar Paredes, Vargas, Compo, Waldemar Reyes. Yes, just under 60 kilometres an hour. So slight downhill, possibly tailwind behind them as well. Yeah, we can see it is, so just a nice little run downhill. This will give them just a little bit of relief. Constant change in speed will be hurting a number of riders though. Again, if you just joined us, what I can say is we're at 12,000 feet above sea level up here on this plateau here in northern China. 217 there. Josh Kench, another one of the New Zealanders, rode very well yesterday. He's got his fellow teammate, Saeed Savradez, in the blue jersey. Jonathan Monsalve is one of the riders that's in that group of 4. In fact, that group of 4 is still up the road. It appears they may have been swallowed up by the peloton here. So they have, because there is Jonathan Monsalve. Interesting different name pronunciations based on whether you anglicise it, based on the country. So Monsalve, different social media messages through. This group of 4 looking very, very determined. They're about to start this tough little niggly climb. We'll see them go back uphill again. They'll get some wonderful scenery at the top. Then it's a long descent, pretty much all downhill through to the finish with a couple of little undulations. And the scenery will change. Mario Aparicio looking very good though for Burgos, looking pretty comfortable. Like the way that he's continuing to just get out of his seat, using every opportunity, use a slightly different group of muscles. So that's some cyclists will prefer to climb seated. I know a lot of riders who will do a lot of work, a lot of reps, a lot of time out of their seats, and they've got that ability to change muscle groups, to change their body position throughout the long stages, just to give themselves that little bit of relief if required. So Astana on the front, and now the leader, the leading Asian rider in the blue jersey, Saeed Savradez, on the front. Vadim Pronsky, the rider from Astana, who has just been an absolute animal in regards to the work and volume of work he's done, particularly yesterday. Another attack coming from the boys from Median out of Colombia. Up there on the left-hand side, everybody immediately jumps across. This will be hurting the riders. This will be burning. They'll be all locked in the hurt box at this point. Razor blades starting to attack the lungs of particularly those athletes that maybe haven't been born at sea, haven't been born at altitude, or don't live at altitude. This is going to start to hurt because they're about to begin the final climb of the day as well. Looking guarantee there'll be bike riders that are sitting there back at the Peloton going, come on, boys, just calm it down, calm it down. Do we really need to be doing this? With these guys on the 4, they'll just all find their happy place. They'll all be at a high aerobic state. They can all hold a conversation if they need to. They'll be bordering on threshold where the body starts to become a little bit more lactic. Just notice the contrast in revolutions per minute. We can see that Mario Aparicio tend to maybe just have a slightly lower cadence, so probably pressing on a slightly higher gear. Then you go back, have a look at Adne van and Gallen, and he, much smaller figure, tends to spin a lot higher, tends to have a much higher cadence. Again, it just comes down to individual physiology. We always see back in the days of Armstrong and Jan Ulrich tended to push the slightly bigger gears at a lower cadence. Lance Armstrong tended to spin a lot more. It's in their best interest all to stay together here. If they feel they've got a passenger or anybody that's potentially slowing them down, they'll look to discard them. They certainly won't be looking to wait for them. There is henok mulbrhan, King of the Mountain, sitting right on his wheel. Our race leader, Enrico Manueli Torossi. As I said, the thing with Torossi is he always looks uncomfortable. It's just his facial expressions. He just never looks comfortable. A number of times yesterday, we felt that perhaps he was going to get dropped on the big climb. But when it was all said and done at the top, he was there and he ultimately ended up winning the stage. And I guess the lesson in it for everybody, never look at the facial expressions, look at the form. Riders looking to try and changing gears, can't find the right gear. Head, shoulders begin to move around, upper body movement. It's certainly a significant size peloton. How many of them will stay together though on this last climb? But if they can catch that leading group, who are up to now 3 minutes and 45 seconds, then we are ultimately going to come down to a bunch sprint. And the big question is, where are the likes of David Baltakini? Is he in there? henok mulbrhan. A stage potentially set up for him. Opportunity for him to pick up more valuable bonus seconds. He currently sits in second, 12 seconds back on our race leader, Manueli Torossi. Sitting there at number 34 under Okamika. He is an aerobic animal, the man from Burgos. Boy, he knows how to do some work when he's asked upon. Exactly the type of guy you want in your team. Really good here to see one of the local Chinese trade teams sitting there. The likes, Li Ning Star, Luke Mudgwaite in the green jersey. Then we've got the Thai team of Tian Uday Hotel with Josh Kench in that group, Jonathan Molensalve. Just starting to see Adne van Engelen. Just looks like he's leaning a little bit harder on his gears. I just wonder whether he is genuinely fatiguing just a little bit. Doesn't look quite as smooth as he did moments ago. But as mentioned, they'll all be going through good patches and bad patches. Deep carbon rim wheels. Gone are the days of the blade spokes or the spoke wheels. Gone are the days of the rim brakes. In fact, in saying that, just looking at that, I'd like to maybe have another look. Just have a look there at Mario Aparicio. He might actually be on rim brakes. Very few riders these days, most of them on disc brakes. No, he is on the disc brakes. And how quickly technology advances, how quickly technology moves on. There he is, Guillermo Silva. Doing everything right at the moment. Just nice and focused, just thinking about his form. Again, just that little bit of relief, just get out of your seat. Use that slightly different muscle group. Find any means possible just to find some level of comfort when the mind and the body are both screaming. Gallen. Still just looking comfortable. So we just have a look at this plateau here in northern China. A lot of farming. Managed to drive the stage yesterday. There's going to be some spectacular scenery for the riders shortly. And it's going to be a real contrast in scenery over that last 25 kilometres. And so now we do see the work on the front being done by VF Group Bardiani, the holders of the yellow jersey. They realise that if this gap doesn't come down, they won't be holding the jersey tomorrow. It will more than likely sit on the shoulders of Jefferson Cepeda. Now this tunnel here, one of many, extraordinary piece of engineering. We drove through one the other day that I would argue was about 10 kilometres long. Great work being done by our camera crew though. So I haven't seen Adney Van and Gallen do too much work. I think he's just sitting back, and there is Luke Mudgway, yellow green jersey holder, leading start. Man from Palmerston North, which is sort of central North Island of New Zealand on the west coast. Looks too though that Jensen Plowright, the young Australian who won stage one, might be sitting there just directly in front of our man in yellow. It's not Jensen Plowright, but Elvis de Koenig here in numbers. Got to like this man from Eritrea. Just a beautiful bike rider. You can just see the high turnover, the cadence that he brings to his riding. So Benny Gourmet, of course, having won a couple of stages in the Tour de France, also from Eritrea. So great to have a small African nation having two riders riding in the Giro d'Italia earlier this year. And now Luke Mudgway, has he got a technical issue with his bike? No, just in a really, basically got a couple more gears to go to if he needs to on the big climbs, but he's pretty much strung out, which suggests that he is starting to struggle just a little bit, searching for those easy gears now. Meanwhile, these four are on a charge. Great to have Eritrea riding two riders in Giro d'Italia. Just wonder what the African nations are capable of if they can draw inspiration from the likes of Benny Gourmet and henok mulbrhan. Mulbrhan has just looked the best rider throughout the tour, to be fair. Again, they just didn't quite have his team with them on day two, and it ultimately probably cost him. But yesterday took his chance, and he is poised and he is set. Not want to give, however, Jefferson Cepeda the yellow jersey tonight, because this Kaha rural team demonstrated yesterday, they've demonstrated again today, they are stacked full of climbers. They have a team who can defend the jersey. At some point, the Peloton needs to decide enough is enough. How quickly can they shut down 3.5 minutes? Is it the responsibility of Astana and henok mulbrhan? Is it the responsibility? Well, it is the responsibility of VF Group Bardiani, but we're just not sure how many riders they actually have in the peloton to be able to come to the front, to join the likes of Astana, to chase this group. Because certainly we know that Burgos will do nothing. We know that Kaharuru will do nothing. They'll just simply try and upset things. The sprinters, well, it's a near benefit potentially for this to come together. Alpecin Koenig, the likes of Korotek with David Baldacchini. So 32.2 kilometres remain. And now this nasty little final climb. And onto the downhill. So they in fact have reached the summit of that climb. Now they are on the downhill. So 30 kilometres remain. It is game on, folks. These four, well, they're in time trial mode. They're in team's pursuit mode. This man here on the road is your race leader. Edney van den Gallen. Is he a sprinter? Does he have the ability to possibly win the stage? Came in 13 minutes down on GC. What are his aspirations? What are his expectations? If things remain the way they are at the moment. Great. Just over 80 kilometres an hour, doing it pretty comfortably. Really good look here at Guillermo Silva. Didn't feature so much yesterday on stage 3. Yesterday, of course, the riders, well, they had some pretty big climbs going up to 11,500 feet. But today they had to go up the Washon Buktai climb, which was 3,760 metres or 12,300 feet above sea level. Second biggest climb today, 3,572 metres, which they've just reached, 11,700 feet above sea level. What we haven't seen is Eric Fagundes from Burgos. We assume that he's sitting in the peloton. He was the race leader after stage 2, finished second last year in the Tour. Now this peloton, it'll be interesting to see what sort of speeds they can reach. Certainly plenty enough time to shut down 3 minutes 30. It's just whether or not there's the desire to do it. Now have a look at the landscape here, because that landscape's going to change very quickly again. And here is that peloton. And it's good to see VF Group Bardiani on the front, looking to drive it. Like they do still have a couple of riders in the peloton, possibly 3. They're going to need to come to the front and do some work collectively together, though, if they want to shut this break down. And now you can see all of them starting to move their way to the pointy end. So good move here from Bardiani. I think they realise enough is enough now. So the leader of the yellow jersey coming into the stage, Manueli, Tarosi has said to his team, let's go, boys. We've got 30 kilometres to do it, or 25, between 25 and 30 kilometres to do it. And these four, well, there's no plan B for them. Have not seen really a lot of work being done here by Adne van Galen. He's just been sitting on the back, the Dutch rider. And look at just the aggression on the front. Just look how hard they are riding. They believe that they can take some serious time out on this descent. Then it'll be a simple case of who wins the sprint. Might just possibly be Eric Fagundy is out there to the right in the purple and the Burgos colours. Second last year, race leader after stage 2. Disappointing day yesterday in the mountains. So VF Group Bardiani are on the charge. They will just be chucking down the massive gears here. And really good. Have a little bit of a drink just when you're in that slipstream, when your heart rate's just that little bit lower. They'll be taking down gels rather than sort of more solid food. It's not necessarily a right or wrong. Each of these athletes will have well-established protocols when it comes to hydration, nutrition. They'll train on it, they'll race on it. The biggest mistake you can make is training one way and then turning up and racing a different way. So some interesting tattoos being shown. I'm sure it's got deep personal meaning to each of the riders. Seems to be these days very common. And now the Astana boys on the peloton as well. So henok mulbrhan, he also wants this shut down. He fancies himself in a sprint finish. He knows how valuable that would be in terms of time bonuses, in terms of reducing the 12-second gap between himself and the race leader, Manuele Tarosi. He's already picked up 3 seconds today for winning the first sprint. So what was 12 seconds is 9 seconds in terms of the yellow jersey. If this race comes together, if this race stays apart, won't mean too much because Jefferson Cepeda will more than likely be the new race leader. Cepeda came in 20 seconds behind Tarosi on the GC standings heading into today's stage. henok mulbrhan 12 seconds back in second. Next best was another one of the Kaha Rural team, and that was Jochen Mugide. And Mugide sitting 27 seconds back on GC. Then a little bit of a gap. Eric Fagundes, 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Santiago Umba out of Astana, just 48 seconds back. So still anybody's race. There are still probably anywhere from 10 riders in contention. Have a look at the yak farming on this plateau. Scenery does change, starts to become a little bit more Mediterranean-esque, a little bit like you're in somewhere in Arizona, possibly in the United States shortly. And so just that little bit of a crosswind there, just the stagger. Nice job being shown there with that front wheel, just sneaking in behind the rider in front of him on the opposite side from the direction of the wind. But he's looked very, very good all day, Guillermo Silva. He wasn't as prominent yesterday as some of his other Kaha Rural teammates. Helmi Gardino was certainly very prominent. As mentioned, Mugide was very prominent. Jefferson Cepeda, well, he was at the forefront of it all. Adne van Ingelen, an experienced bike rider out of the Netherlands. And now we see Team Corotech coming to the front for their man, assuming that he's in the group, David Baldacchini, looking to try and maybe potentially set up the stage win for him in a sprint finish. But the VF Group Bardiani boys certainly on the front doing most of the work. As expected, that is the responsibility you have when you have the yellow jersey. That is why so often in the big grand tours you see a lot of teams just don't want the yellow jersey in the first week, don't want the responsibility of it. Saying that, the first week of the Tour de France and these grand tours has changed a lot from, say, what it was 10 years ago, where really the first week was a week of flat stages and sprints, to now having some big climbs in them and some significant stages, which actually ultimately end up having a bearing on the overall yellow jersey when it's all said and done. So the yellow jersey leader still managing to hold a conversation. As I said, just his facial expression always makes him look somewhat suffering, and he's probably not the prettiest bike rider. Just see what those crosswinds just playing a little bit of havoc. So now coming across their right shoulders. (52, 55 kilometres an hour). Great to see Corotech there. So Alexander Bolmer of Switzerland and David Baldacchini, Matteo Amella, Marco Murgano, part of that team as well. And of course, Lorenzo Cartucci. Kaharuru boys just sitting back. They don't have to do anything. They've got no responsibility, as do the rest of the Burgos boys. They're just sitting back there. Good to see they're all there. Henok mulbrhan, well, he'll have his workers on the front of Astana. They will come through and do their work, and sitting back more than happy just to be tourists today are the boys from Median. I wonder whether they will attack this race. They have got a number of very, very good climbers. Really yet to see them fire a shot. Maybe it is tomorrow, because every stage is a climber's stage. Every stage you've got to be comfortable with your head above the clouds. So 20 kilometres remain. Around about 25 minutes of racing. Amazing just is for riders when they sit in the slipstream of another rider. In the Peloton, you can be sitting in the middle of it doing 30% less than those on the front. What they call a drag coefficient. So some sports are similar. Swimming can be a similar one. Sit on the feet of another swimmer, you get 10 to 15% drag coefficient. In cycling, you have these two forces that work together. Those riders behind tend to push the riders at the front, and the riders at the front pull the riders behind. So the bigger the peloton, the greater that force. It does allow brakes to be shut down pretty quickly. So gap at 3 minutes 30. So the Astana on the front. VF Group Bardiani. And it was actually the Bardiani team last year that henok mulbrhan rode for when he ended up winning this tour. It's obviously taken up a contract with Astana. And so there's some wonderful little subplots within this peloton. Haven't seen too many of the Polish riders. Maszowska Sertse team. The red and the black sitting about maybe 10 wheels back at the moment. So Team Korotek there in the yellow and crimson. So some real desperation. Peloton starting to take some time out. It was 3:30 now, down to 3:10, 18.1 kilometres left on the road. Settle back, folks. I think we're going to have a very, very close, a very exciting finish. Are we going to have a race between our group of four up front, or are we going to end up having a bunch sprint? And if we do have a bunch sprint, how many pure sprinters still left in this peloton? No. The carnage and the havoc that stage 4 has reaped upon this group of riders. So Henok mulbrhan deciding that he wants to make his way through the peloton. There is the Team Korotek, so David Baldacchini sitting there, number 52. Certainly a man who's capable of winning the stage. Number 51 is Alexander Balmer. We mentioned him earlier. And number 56, Lorenzo Cortucci. So they've certainly got critical mass, certainly got the ability. Remainder of the Caja Rural team there. We've got Guillermo. In fact, we've got Helmi Gardino, number 45. Number 43 is Samuel Fernandez. They can just be passengers now. Their boys are up the road. They don't have to do anything. They've been superb yesterday and today. Also, it just shows the Median, the entire team in this peloton, just demonstrating how good they are as climbers, yet no one's really decided to take a particular stage by the scruff of the neck just yet. Will their day come tomorrow? Are they just biding their time? Are they just like a coiled spring, just waiting to pop? Not good when your yellow jersey's still on the front. Arguably the strongest rider within this VF group, but it's his yellow jersey. So he says, look, happy boys, happy to get some buy-in here. Happy to just give you guys just a little bit of relief. I'm the one that's got the most to lose. Setting it up nicely though, potentially for a sprint finish. Wants to get a time split. Wants to understand what is going up at the front of this bike race. Did ride the Giro d'Italia. Did Manuele Tarosi. Finished 71st in the mountains classification, 35 in the points classification, 102nd on general classification. He did finish second on stage 19. 11th, I should say. Now you start to see the change in landscape going from this alpine environment to, again, this remarkable geology that exists in this part of China with these rich, red, almost dirt mountains. Spectacular yesterday on stage 3. And they'll be now breaking this down in the head, 15.2 kilometres. Can't eat an elephant whole, but you can eat it in small pieces. Just break it down, K by K. They'll know there'll be a point at this race where it might just come down to the 4 of them, but they'll also be aware that the peloton have decided to take it up another gear. It is very much game on. So again, you look at how high they are above sea level, still at well above 10,000 feet. Earlier today, they went as high as 12,300. In the days coming, they'll go above 13,000 feet. Highest altitude bike race in the world. You are watching the 23rd edition of the tour of Qinghai Lake in northern China. Possibly David Baldacchini's gone up the road. Just see if we can pick up a number. These four riders have been superb. So Jefferson Cepeda came in just 20 seconds out of the yellow jersey, heading into today's stage. Guillermo Silva still just waiting for further instructions. Beautifully set up, beautifully positioned. Edney van Engelen, well, he's just been sitting there all day. He's just been a passenger. Wouldn't it be great if he could end up burgling the stage? Does he have the ability to sprint? You would think if it comes down to a sprint finish, really this time, Kaharul should take the stage if these four do stay away. They've got the 1-2 punch. They have the ability to send one rider up the road to attack the other two. They jump across cover and then bang, you get the next hit from the other rider. Really, they had 3 in the break yesterday in a 6-man break, and they couldn't get the job done. And it ended up being won by our leader of the yellow jersey, Manuel Tarosi, who was there on his own. He basically ambushed them. Now we're about to see the same today from Edney van Engelen. So it might be Attilo Viviani, in fact, for Team Corotec. Very good sprinter. Another one who, again, is capable of winning the stage if need be, if it was to come together. And we just talk about the little bit of undulation here, and that's just an example of what's ahead of them. Flick of the elbow just come through. Don't even need to do that now. It's just automatic. It's got a really nice rhythm. These four just rolling through, or 3 of them rolling through. As mentioned, Edney van Engelen just basically sitting there. One rider on his own looking to try and chase, looking to try and get on that group. Be desperately trying to get onto the camera motorbikes, and if you can grab a little bit of a draft, a little bit of a drag. And look at the high cadence here. He's absolutely just spun out in his hardest gear, working as hard as he can. And in fact, I thought initially it was David Baldacchini, and in fact it is David Baldacchini. So somewhat of a surprise, the man who finished 3rd on GC last year. Looks back over his shoulder. At some point he's going to have to make a decision. Does he keep burning the matches he's burning? Does he continue to lock himself in the hurt box only to get swallowed up anyway? Or does he say, you know what, I gave it a decent crack. I'll sit up now and I'll drink and eat. Get swallowed back up by the peloton and hopefully gear myself up for potentially a sprint finish. Starting to get close. To the town of Gonghu. Total distance today, 136.1 kilometres. So Mario Aparicio from Burgos in the purple. Still really nice form being shown by these riders. No sign of fatigue. So Mario Maurizio came into today's stage 2 minutes and 2 seconds down. Potentially could end up second on GC if they do keep this gap at 3 minutes. But it is Jefferson Cepeda who has the most to gain by this group of 4 working effectively together. As mentioned earlier, 20 seconds behind Manuele Tarosi heading into today's stage, sitting third on GC. David Baldacchini, who is in no man's land at the moment, started the stage in 8th place, 2 minutes and 2 seconds back. So one of the last little niggly climbs of the day, but just a chance again, use a slightly different muscle group, get out of the seat, dance on those pedals just a little bit. Still really good form. Nice, beautiful pedaler. Every time he comes through, it's almost like he's just scraping mud off the bottom of his shoe, that lovely little circular motion. So somewhat overcast. So 7.1 kilometres. Coming into the town of Ganghu. It's got a very vibrant CBD, a lot of vendors on the street at night, and a real atmosphere to it. The finish line is set up in more of a new sort of industrial area, sort of more government type buildings, but a good crowd starting to gather to welcome these riders home. Which one of these 4 will end up taking the sprint? Will it be Mario Aparicio, Jefferson Cepeda, number 42, Guillermo Silva, number 44, Adne van en Gallen, number 112. Who amongst them, amongst the Kaha rural team, is the team leader? They just shake hands and go, hey, let's give it our best. But you'd certainly expect with 2 riders from one team in that group of 4 that they should win this stage. If they play their cards right, Adne van en Gallen, I think, will be just sitting there hoping to do what Manuele Tarosi did to Gaha Rural yesterday. The only man in the group of 6 that didn't have a teammate around him, and somehow managed to outthink and outmaneuver both the Astana team and both the Kaha Rural team. So Baldacchini looking like he will be swallowed up at some point. So Guillermo Silva certainly has looked strong all day. What a bike rider. They'll be starting to get excited now. Not 100% sure what that time is back to the peloton. But are we going to have a new race leader? It's 3 minutes unofficially at the moment, which by my reckoning will mean that Jefferson Cepeda will have the responsibility of heading into stage 5 as the overall leader on GC. Somewhat surprised that really it's been allowed to happen, that we haven't seen more aggression from VF Group Bardiani in terms of defending that yellow jersey and henok mulbrhan's Astana team. I mean, they're on the front now, VF Group Bardiani, but might just be a little too late. So one big long line sitting back there just midway, just slotting back in the polka dot is henok mulbrhan. Yellow jersey there of Manueli Tarosi. Also holder of the green jersey. The big man there. And Okamika from Burgos. Absolute monster. When he's asked to go to the work, go to the front, do the work, he is as hard as nails. And so just over 3 kilometres remain. It's a slight uphill finish. It's just got the slightest gradient for the sprint finish. It's not perfectly flat where the finish line is set up. Probably a 1 to 2% gradient. So that is something that the riders will have to factor in. Now I think it's really just a case of minimising the damage here for the Bardiani team. So Luca Colnaghi, Ricardo Luca, Filippo Magli, David Gaburo, Manuel Tarosi, the yellow jersey leader, and then of course a wonderful rider Enrico Zanincello. So just enjoying this run now as they do come into the town of Konghu. Just see that breeze starting to get up. So one of these 4 riders will end up winning this stage. Will we have a new race leader? 2 riders from Kaha Rural. 1 rider from Burgos and 1 rider from the Thai trade team, Rujai Insurance. That rider, Adne van Engelen. He sat on the back of these 3 for most of the last 30 to 40 kilometres. Does he have the ability to jump? Now, how do Kaha Rural play this? They had 3 in the break yesterday. 6 riders contested that stage, and they somehow found a way to lose the stage. The Peloton now in pursuit. Rider from Median deciding to go off the front. They have certainly reduced the time. But for Jefferson Cepeda, he needs just over 20 seconds to potentially move into that yellow jersey. Now we start to see Aparicio beginning to make his move. Nicely set up here. The Kaha Rural boys. They're going to spring around. Crowd starting to make plenty of noise. Wonderful, wonderful bike race beginning to develop as expected. Guillermo Silva on the front, sitting back comfortably. Jefferson Cepeda, he's got the wheels in front of him. Here comes Mario Aparicio from Burgos, looking to try and take the stage. The big man goes, he attacks hard, and he might just have enough in the legs, does he, on the slide uphill stretch. Big stretch now coming from Adne van Engelen, but I think it will be Mario Aparicio who will end up taking the stage. Very good trip, very, very good stage victory for Burgos. It'll be Adne van Engelen who will pick up 2nd place, and then possibly of Kaha Rural, and then Jefferson Cepeda. Now the clock goes on. Does Cepeda become the new race leader? But what a moment. Really, really good for Burgos. Disappointing day yesterday for them. They've ended up picking up 2 out of the 4 stage victories, though, so far in this year's tour of Jinghai Lake. Just too strong. I think for the Kaha Rural boys, I think they realise the prize is bigger, that the yellow jersey will sit on the shoulders of Jefferson Cepeda as the rest of the peloton now look to swing around and pick up the minor placings inside the top 10. Oh, once again, absolutely on the front, driving this train. It is Tartalita Exorex. It is also the Team Corotect, in fact. So Team Corotect on the front, looking to set this up maybe for David Baldacchini. henok mulbrhan, where is he? Sitting back there in the polka dot. Race leader. Also nicely poised, nicely set. Manueli Tarosi, he decides to have a go. He's gone off the front already, the yellow jersey leader. Looking to try and just set a bit of a tempo, but who's going to come off his back wheel here? Expect the attacks to come up the right-hand side, the left-hand side. This is the 5th, 6th and 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. We do see one of the Asian riders launch. Immediately they jump onto his wheel. henok mulbrhan, nicely poised, sitting back there in around 7th place in the polka dot. Arguably the best sprinter probably in this group. Oh, just looks over his shoulder. And really, really good performance coming here from Sport Toto cycling team. And henok mulbrhan, though, will roll over in front of him. He will end up picking up 5th place for his efforts. Kenny also in the mix. So Viviani as well. And our race leader heading into the stage will cross the line. Good performance from all of the riders in testing conditions, well and truly above 13,000 feet for all of them. But it was all said and done. Mario Aparicio takes the stage victory. Guillermo Silva somewhat struggling, as was Jefferson Cepeda. And then 2nd place, Adne van Ingelen. Great emotion. Another wonderful stage. Tactically, you do have to scratch your head and ask yourself what Bardiani were doing and why perhaps henok mulbrhan and the Astana team weren't more committed in the chase. Because putting the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Jefferson Cepeda and the Kaha Rural team, it's not going to be easy to take it back from them. 2 riders in the break today, 3 riders in the break yesterday. 2 stages that